or curves to it, kind of like what you see in the logo. It has these nice little arches and curves and different things like that. I just go through and add more points to it. Start using that anchor point tool to kind of make some curves and different things, just to kind of make it unique.
Pretty cool.
The same goes in font creation too. When people make fonts, it's the same process. They're sketching things out and they're just building it in Illustrator and bringing it over to font programs.
Oh, that's how they do it.
Yeah. So that's essentially in a nutshell how I create the logos. And then each piece I do. So we'll just start with the Z right here. Let's just say that was finished and I was happy with that Z. I wanted it a green color, so I'd actually choose the color picker and turn it to like a nice green shade I wanted to. What I like to do is kind of outline my my pieces just to kind of get a nice defining shape for them. So I'll just duplicate that Z, which is Shift-Alt, if you happen to want to know the hotkey. Yeah, I'm a hotkey madman on these things. So Shift-Alt is the way I duplicate it, and as you can see when I do that, it gives me two versions, and I kind of just arrow it around until I get it in place or snap it into place. I always send it back to the background, and just to make a quick outline, you can just take that piece you just made, add an outline around it, and then just increase the stroke on the outline. And you just kind of get these nice letters, right? And then from there, you can just start taking this shape and maybe cutting it up to make more shades and shadows. And like there, I cut out like a little part of the Z to make a nice little shadow on that. And just kind of like think about, how light would hit something and just kind of make it more animated. It makes it, just kind of cooler. That's kind of my process, really. I just do that about, 500 times. And then you have
repeat, refine.
Exactly. Just repeat, refine, repeat, refine until you have what you're looking for. And then you get something cool that you can use and then save it out as a PNG, bring it into Unity, use it on your title screens, use it everywhere. You can, if you want t-shirts done, anything, it's great. So Illustrator, highly recommend if you're going to create assets for Unity. Some people are different. Some people say no Photoshop all the way, or they might be using another image editing program. Yeah. I just like the crispness of Illustrator. I think it gives you a really nice animated quality. And you have all these great vector pieces that you can really kind of build a library of and arrange them on a page to build sprite sheets and different things that you can use over and over and over again.
So then you'll just export those out, take those images, drag and drop those images in Unity, and
absolutely.
place them in the scene. And
yeah, when we get into the 2D character, when I actually kind of build this on the fly right here, I'll just show you how I do that. We'll do some different chunks and pieces of them, save it as a sprite sheet, and then you can use those pieces, bring them into Unity, kind of get it all skeletoned up and have it move around and do different things.
Skeletoned up.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Skeletoned up. I guess that's my term, yeah. So I think next we're going to move on to the
2D character creation.
2D character creation. Well, let's show the actual title screen, right? So, now that I finished this logo, there's a couple different things you're going to need on the title screen. So, we have this great logo, it looks great, but we need some type of splash graphic, I think, to go along with it because we really want to reinforce the idea of these pumpkin slayers and maybe the world that they live in. Yeah. So with that, I created this little, go here, I'm always losing my files, but when I go here, let's see, we have, no, that's not it, the home screen, right here. So we created this home screen, and once you're done, there you go. So once you're done with the logo,
nice.
A lot of times, I'll mark out like an HD size, like 16 by 9 or just 1920 by 1080 version of like a home screen, right? A blank canvas. I start bringing in my elements. So I bring in my logo from Illustrator, and then I'll start creating new assets in Illustrator probably, or even drawing them in Photoshop. And so this was kind of our just really loose mock-up of what we were trying to do for the game. But we wanted to reinforce a couple things. We wanted to reinforce the world that this game takes place in, which is this kind of funky cemetery, right?
Halloween-y.
Like an animated kind of quirky cemetery. And then we wanted to reinforce the enemies, like what are you fighting in this game? So with that, we thought it was using these little silhouettes of these pumpkins, I thought was really cool. And that's something too that, if you're doing a game on that home screen, you always like to do something on a home screen that kind of has a consistent kind of animated repetition. So it's not just static when it's sitting there, it's doing something. So not for this, but down the road, you could take those pumpkins and have each one kind of like constantly laughing here and there. Each one would move and
glow
laugh
a little bit.
Yeah, and add little sounds to them and stuff. So you kind of get this. You really get a sense of the the style and the world and what you're trying to create. So, in a nutshell, that's what we did for the home screen right here. It's basic, but we kind of have a couple elements in here that kind of reinforce the theme and what we're trying to do. We chose a font that's kind of a little more of this kind of retro horror aspect of what we were trying to do for the play game, and just kind of threw this together. So very, very simple, but if you're going to start an indie game, you got to start somewhere, and that's always with the title screen. And with the title screen, you got to have these different elements and lay it out.
That's the first thing to hook a person once they've opened it up.
Yeah, they want to see something cool, and you got to have a really cool logo that hooks them right away. You got to have just all these elements ready, and then from there you can start making your mobile game. So
part of the challenge is getting them into your game.
Yeah.
I will talk about that later. And then once they've got into your game, you got to hook.
Yeah.
Hook, line, and sinker.
So next up, I think we're going to get into 2D character creation.
2D character creation, indeed, which is another thing I can't wait to see because that's another big mystery. Like I said, I can do a little mean stick figure, but as far as creating it past that,
yeah,
that's where I defer to you.
So we got some comments from the people on the boards when we were first getting this thing going, and I think we posed the question of, what kind of character did we want? And I think the winning candidate was a Triceratops Ninja Barbarian character. So from there, I did this quick little doodle just as the comments were coming in. I kind of collectively chose a couple people's different opinions to create this. But from there, you can see it's a super rough sketch. Like I never am extremely fine-tuned in my sketches. I really just kind of go off the cuff and create something. I think I did this in a matter of 2 minutes. Just go fast to make what you want. Take pieces, cut them up, make them bigger, make them smaller. Just kind of get the roughed out shape and the silhouette of the character you're trying to make. And then from there, you got a really great guideline that you do just like in Illustrator. You have this template layer to start refining on. So I always start in Photoshop. So right now, I did my sketch, and I definitely recommend using a drawing tablet of some kind. If you have a Surface Pro 3, or if you have a Cintiq, or an Intuos tablet, these are great for on the go. Definitely use a drawing tablet of some time. It's just going to make your life way easier when you do this.
Take us through, so we've got a slide on a great kind of overview of some of the steps. Talk about kind of some of the things that's required as per what you would do each step of the way.
So when you start, you want to start with your initial sketch of the character, right? And this is kind of what we have here in Photoshop. You can do it in Photoshop like I did with this with my Intuos tablet, or you can do pen and paper, on the fly, get it ready. And then from there, you want to create your template layer, right? Which is just your base layer. Don't think of it, don't get overcomplicated with the term template. All it is just a base layer. So imagine like the tracing layer that you're going to use, your main kind of just rough sketch sits on below, and then you're going to basically build up on top of that, right? So from there, we've got here's our rough sketch. We're going to make this our template layer. I always start, it's just on white right there, nothing's separated, nothing's crazy. We just have our sketch right there. I always just make a new layer on top of that. And I'm not working in a really high resolution. Another thing to note, when you're creating characters that you're going to eventually be tracing in Illustrator and other programs, you don't need to go like 300 DPI or 600 DPI and go crazy with the sketches. Just keep them low res. They're just reference layers. That's all it is. So that's going to help with a couple things. If you've got a system that doesn't have, the really hardcore guts to really push the graphics and stuff with your high resolution images, you can just, you can do it on a low res device. So you can do it on, tablets with pens or whatever. You can do it in the Surface models are great. I love the Surface Pro 3, has awesome drawing tools in there. And you just want to get that sketch done and then bring it in from there. You bring it into Photoshop, and just with any resolution, you just want to get the general shapes and the general things done, and then bring it into Illustrator and actually start refining them. And just like we did in the logo, right? Tracing each element and making them usable elements, usable vector elements that we can then kind of piece out and kind of create this almost like a marionette, right, of all these different pieces that we're eventually going to bring in Unity.
Separately. And
yeah, they all have anchor points that are going to move, and then you can even do variations of those. Like if we're doing the eyes separately, you can do eyes that blink, eyes that are scared. You can do mouths that are talking, mouths that aren't talking, all kinds of different pieces. And it depends on the character you're trying to do. But when you do that, it's going to give you a ton of flexibility, especially with Unity's 2D tools. They got really, really great animation tools. And I think it's using Mechanim behind the scenes to do it.
Yeah.
But the blending's awesome. You can actually separate the layers of blending. So the top of your character could be doing one thing, like attacking, while the bottom's running. All kinds of stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah, but back to the character creation. I know people want to see exactly the process of what
I want to
I'm
be
doing.
selfish here, and I watched you kind of in the room over there sketch some of this out, and Can you just show us even roughly?
Roughly?
Roughly, like how you would even start that. Like I see this kind of quasi-refined thing that you're working on here, and I'm like, wow, geez, where do you even start to draw? Like that looks pretty good to me. Way better than my stick figures.
So with that, honestly, it's really as basic as just grabbing the pen tool or the paintbrush tool in Photoshop, the airbrush tool, and just kind of just going nuts. And you just want to get your shapes down and just kind of, you don't have to go crazy with it. You just want to kind of define like the shape and maybe even just do some general shapes to kind of get like what you want the character, like his proportions to be, and just kind of different elements, right?
And, so you find you always use kind of a lot of lines just to kind of
I just go rough, and for me that's just my loose. I always do that when I'm sketching. I like to keep it loose because I'm gonna get rid of this anyways, right? This is just for me. Like I'm thinking, okay, like what are these sizes gonna be? Like how big's the head gonna be? What are the arms gonna look like? Different things like that, and from there you can then start just even going over that and like refining like these different shapes, right? So I know like a Triceratops, he's got these horns and these different things. So this is just really, really basic stuff. I'm just going in and just kind of doodling, like nothing crazy. Like I'm not using my best artistic ability.
But I mean, this is already better than I think I can do. Like when you draw an outline and you immediately go for the Triceratops and you kind of do the horns on them like that.
Yeah.
Have you practiced drawing dinosaurs in the past? Like, will you take time as part of your kind of training routine, so to say, and just say, you know what, I want to try to draw a dinosaur today?
It depends. I just tend to. I mean, I've always loved dinosaurs ever since I was a kid. So I was, and I know what a Triceratops looks like. Yeah. I know what different things look like. And if you have that vision in your head, just start going nuts and sketching it down and
just kind of refine it as the time goes on.
Yeah, and even as a teacher, I tell my students when you're working on it, you really just want to be loose and just get that shape of the character, get the silhouette going, get the general shapes going, and then you just start going in and working on top of that and building it up. You don't have to be super, super refined. I think for this guy, we talked about barbarian. So at first I wanted to have this like kind of big barbarian Triceratops with like an axe, but then people were like, oh no, make him a ninja, make him a cyborg, like do all this stuff. So I was like, okay, let's
make him a Ken doll Triceratops driving a car.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like tweaking different elements, right? So I started with the head because I figured, okay, it's Triceratops, let's at least get that point home, and then we do that, and then from there we start kind of blocking out the shape. So I wanted these big kind of arms that you got going on here. I wanted maybe like this kind of more cyborgy chest piece with like some kind of diode in the center, and the same with the arms right here, representative of maybe some other video game characters or other cyborg characters people have seen, and just little elements. Well, I don't know what happened there. And from there you just start building your character out. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good reference layer to work with, and I'm gonna get rid of those sketches I saw, even though that was actually looking kind of cool on the side right there. But I'm actually use that head, which is great. This is why you sketch, right? So you kind of have these elements that you can use. Actually, it was pretty close.
That's pretty close.
So
nice.
Yeah. I mean, this is just my process. This is my workflow. I'm very, very loose on the things I do. But when it comes to refining them, that's when you really take the time and make it look great, right? So we've got this really, really base kind of template layer that we want to use, and from there, we're going to start like refining this character, right? And even you don't have to go to the point where it's so refined in Photoshop that you're just like, this is perfect, I'm going to use it as is. Some people do that. Some people just love to paint in Photoshop, and more power to them. Like if you can paint, if you can bump this thing up to a high resolution of 300 or 600 DPI, and then you could even do this in layers in Photoshop and do more of a painterly. If you're going for a painterly look, let's say the game you're making has this kind of hand-drawn quality and everything's kind of painted in the game, you can use Photoshop to do that and add custom brushes and make really nice painted characters and do the exact same thing you're doing in Illustrator. I'd recommend bumping up the resolution if you're going to use those pieces anywhere else, like marketing materials or whatever, which I think you always got to be cognizant of if you're an artist. You want to make sure that the elements you're producing you can always reuse, because you don't want to use them once and just be done with it, right? It's always important to kind of get the most leverage out of the things you create. So, getting back to what we're doing here, I think that for the terms of what I'm doing, I'm going to show you like a really crisp kind of animated quality.
Okay.
Just my workflow for doing that. Sure. But again, like I said, you could use Photoshop to do this if you bumped up the resolution and kind of did the pieces on different layers and whatever. So, we've got some good pieces here to start with. We'll just make this our template layer. And what I do is I always just make a layer on top of everything. We'll name them for the sake of people following along.
You're gonna name them now.
Yeah, I'm just gonna kind of imagine that as just stacking layers. That's gonna be my template. I usually fill it with white, and then I just reduce the opacity on it just to kind of give me like a, that's just for me helps me just create like a nice guide. So anything, my sketches or anything, I just stuff down below it, and then I keep this nice, like tracing paper,
Yeah,
right? You
sure.
just take a piece of paper, stick it over the top, reduce the transparency so you can kind of see this translucent image to work from, right? So same thing, we'll create a new layer, and then we just go through in here, and this is just refining these shapes. And I might not go through and refine everything, maybe just some things that I know that I want to refine that are important to me. But like the arms, maybe I'm a little tighter in my sketching and just kind of go through and get these different elements that I think,
the popping elements, you want those to show out more. And
yeah, exactly. So I'm going in here and just kind of want to, define like some of these cooler elements and visible elements that I want. And I'm not being super, super tight with it, but I'm being, a little bit better than just crazy rough sketches, right? And then, I want people to see these different elements. And I actually, from day to day, I actually work with a Cintiq most of the time. So I'm actually doing this on the screen. So excuse me if it's not perfect.
So with that, you're drawing. Like
I'm drawing actually on the screen. Yeah. So today I'm actually using Intuos, which is fine. For years I used Intuos, and it's kind of a little hard to go back and do it again, but it's actually kind of fun.
You were cruising last night. I was watching.
Yeah, I was cruising. You were getting that thing done. It was awesome. So you can see here, I'm just kind of going through and picking the pieces I like and just kind of refining them and making it look how I want it to look. And it looks good for an arm. And then maybe I'll make another layer and call that our arm. All right. You don't need to separate. This is just for reference for me. You don't need to separate these, but I'm just going to do it for the sake of the demo.
Just to be a little bit more organized in the
program. A little more organized. We have some different pieces here. Just go through and...
Your team members will say, Matt, good job on the layers.
Right, yeah. And I'll show you, there's actually a method to my madness by doing these layers when we get into Illustrator. But as I go here, I'm just making these different pieces. And, because you got to think of the character. Now you're kind of sectioning them out, right? You're going to have these different pieces that you're going to fully develop and use to be more like an animated character. So you got to think beyond just the sketch. You got to think like, what's behind the head? Where does the neck connect? Where do the arms connect, right? So we have this kind of body in the center, and I know my head's going to sit on top, but I kind of want to rough out, the shape of this body. So we have this, because when that arm's moving and he's running or he's attacking, you're going to see more of the character. It's not just going to be a stat character. And this is strictly for skeletal character design. So when you're doing characters that have more of a skeletal look, not a skeletal look, but have like the skeletal tools that you can use in like Unity or Spine or any of these plugins that people have, you just want to be cognizant of the character and the different elements, and that you're going to be able to see all this stuff. If you can imagine pieces that are layered on each other as they move, you're going to reveal parts that you didn't see before. So like I said, I'm just kind of going in here and refining this up, and I might just separate these all as different pieces. I think this was chest.
So all different body parts kind of come off into a different layer.
All different body parts. Separately. Absolutely. So we're going through here, making another arm on the side. I'm getting the reverse side of the arm right here.
Actually, right now with the arm and the chest piece, it looks like a robot.
Yeah, it kind of does, right? He is a cyborg barbarian ninja, so I'm trying to reinforce that. So, I'm just doing the different pieces right here.
You ever start out drawing something one way and you're like, you know what, this really looks like something different, and then you just take it in that direction?
Oh, absolutely. All the time. I kind of piece them to where I think maybe they work a little better. And don't be afraid to just arrow things around and kind of get it right. I'll just call that arm. And sometimes I reduce the opacity, just like I was doing with that template layer on certain pieces, because I'm trying to just get those shapes and define the areas that I'm going to be making. As I'm going through here, I'm just making new layers and just tracing all these elements I have. I actually really like this second head I was making right here. I thought that looked cool. So same thing. We'll just go in there and start building out these shapes, building out these characters.
And so all these separate layers that you're creating here, you'll import these as separate layers then into Illustrator?
Yeah, you could do that. You could absolutely do that. And that's actually what I was going to do, because I think it's going to just make things easier. And the great thing about Photoshop and Illustrator is I can just drag these layers right in, and they'll just come in as image layers that I can use. As I go through here and just kind of getting the look of this character and what I want him to look like. Just defining these different pieces. Just making them look cool.
Draw out the crest.
Yeah.
Horns.
Yeah, you want to get, just kind of getting that style as I go too. And maybe the style even kind of develops as you're going through with it. You know, he's got
It's pretty amazing kind of seeing the whole process done. It is something I haven't spent enough time with, so it's kind of a mystery. I know the tools that are used, but to see it actually done in person is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I'm just going really fast here just for the sake of the demo, just to kind of get this done. I might spend more time refining it, but you know, I want to get into actually creating this so I can show you like what I'm doing.
And we're going to post out, right, some of the code and assets that we're going to be using for the game out on our websites the next couple days.
Yep.
We're going to do a GitHub project out there, so we'll be posting those details out to our websites.
Yep. So yeah, you just want to make sure you go in here and you get all these pieces, and if things look weird, you know, go in and just kind of fix them and tighten them up. And you know, I think I wanted to do like a big tooth on this guy or something that just looked different.
Big ogre tooth almost.
Yeah, right. Almost like an ogre triceratops or something.
Barbarian ogre triceratops. Ninja Ken doll.
Yeah, and you know, your style is your style, right? So, you know, I think a lot of people get afraid or they try to copy other people too much. Just go for it, you know, like make what you
See how it develops, kind of.
Yeah, just go for it and sketch it and see how, you know, make the character you want to make, right?
When you were learning drawing, did you sketch a lot of other things, drawings that you'd see? Would you kind of trace over it and sketch it just to try to learn emotions? Or would you just look at it, do by eye, or both?
You know, I think as a kid I would just draw like all the time, right? And just create all kinds of different characters and monsters and you name it, right? And I would just go for it and just make whatever I thought was cool.
Pretty cool.
I was the kid in class that was always, you know, I was drawing when I wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
You know, just paying attention and I'm drawing, you know, some character and showing it to all my friends, you know. But, you know, we have some elements here. I think that's a good start. You know, I don't think we need to go through the full character just for the sake of time. I just kind of want to show you my process of making these. So for here, this is actually kind of good how we have it laid out. You know, we've got two arms here to work with. We've got a chest piece. We've got another arm and a head. And we want to bring this into Illustrator and actually start making it and tracing the pieces. And so we're going to do that the exact same way we did the logo, right, on the title page. So, you know, you save your image out. You know, always be sure to save and all the things you have.
Save early, save often.
Save early and save
Best
often.
motto of all time.
You know, Triceratops, Ninja, whatever it's called, right? And then,
Very nice.
yeah, be sure to open up Illustrator and then make a new file. Bring it in here, and we're going to place. Grab the Triceratops, Ninja. Was it on the home page or I'm sorry, the desktop? There it is. Triceratops Ninja.
Spot.
Yeah. And then when you place it, you can actually kind of size it. So, you know, I got this canvas to work with here. Oh, so I will put it in. There's our piece. And then the same thing, just like in Photoshop, right? I'll take that in my layers. If I get my layers right here. And then they have actually a template function in here. So I just click template. That gives me my template.
That's your tracing layer.
Yep. And then I just go in and I actually start, you know, zoom in on the area I want to start making. And literally you can do it two ways. You can actually use it with the pen tool if you want to. I'm more classic Illustrator. I love the direct pen tool, so I love making the points and actually kind of defining these shapes. But you can go in and just start, you know, making the pieces you want, right? And I just kind of go one piece at a time, and I build this entire character out. And so, you know, just like before, I'm using the pen tool. I'm always using the pen tool for everything I'm making just to kind of get these shapes. And like when you're in here, you know, the character might kind of refine itself too as you're going in. You know, you get these kind of nice pieces and just go piece at a time. You know, it takes time. It's not something you can get done super, super quickly.
Interesting. So you don't do it really all at one shot, all little pieces, just like you do all the letters. These are all eye, horn, etc.
Exactly.
Guys.
And, you know, I'll, for example, like the eye right here, right? I'm coming through and then maybe I'm just adding like little details on it and different things that I think are just going to kind of make it look a little cooler. You know, you're just kind of going in here, you're using your tools, you're making the shapes you want, like just different cool stuff. Maybe I'm taking shapes and duplicating them to make other shapes. So I actually want to make that eye in there. You know, just get in there, kind of place it where you want it. We'll add some little glass reflections in the eye. You know, just using simple shapes. Just give it like an animated quality. You know, and the more you do it, and the more you refine it, you'll start getting all these different shapes and building a character with all these different pieces. And I think what we're going to do is, we're not going to go through the whole character right now, but just to give you an idea of my process and what I do, I'll finish this up and we'll throw it on the files you can download, and then you can actually look at the sketch with what I do with the vector graphics and the full completed thing. And
you'll draw it out, export it, bring that image into Unity, and
then we can use all those pieces and make a character. I might even throw a sample character together in Unity so everybody can see exactly what I did. Triceratops and then just perfect.
Very, very cool. That was neat.
Yeah. But in the interest of time, we're going to move forward to 3D creation.
3D asset creation.
3D asset
also
creation.
Another amazing area. I'm amazed
Absolutely.
by both 2D, 3D. So I think this is going to be really cool. So maybe take us through kind of the overview.
Okay.
Creating some 3D assets.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I think it starts with the sketch of the characters and what you're trying to do. I don't have the zombie sketch with me, unfortunately. I wish I did. But we needed a zombie character done for the game. We needed it done quickly. And I use Maya for everything I do. If I'm doing characters for games and whatever, Maya, I think for illustrators, is just really, really a great tool. 3D Studio Max is amazing too. I just happen to be a Maya person. I think people are split on which one they want to use, and that's totally fine. Either one's great.
Some folks in the studio that use Blender as well.
Some people use Blender.
Talk earlier.
Blender is very different. I think if you're used to one type of program and you move to something else. From that, I took some screen caps really quickly of just what I was making. So for the zombie character, we kind of just we roughed out this this little zombie guy that we wanted to use, and this is all done in Maya. And just to show you kind of my process, I roughed out the general shape of the character and the pieces that I wanted to make, used the tools in Maya to do it, and then from there, just put some basic textures on them, right? Nothing really crazy. Just kind of get these simple shapes and characters. And it's almost like when you're doing something and sketching in Photoshop, right? You want to build these chunks and pieces and then just start kind of tweaking them and making them work for how you want it to work and give it a style.
All separate, so you can kind of tweak them all separately.
Exactly, like keep all your elements separate. So, when you're working in Maya and you have all these different elements, you want to think about like the arms and the head and keep them all separate. Oh, that was really bad. Your head and you want to keep your eyes separate, all the different pieces separate, the legs. I always separate like my torsos and my legs and my arms. Like all these pieces are just all separate and they're kind of
stuck. So they all move independently.
They move independently, but you can stitch them together if you need them, or you can just keep them separate and build it all as one model with a bunch of separate pieces. You can combine it all together. Like don't feel like everything has to be, seamed together perfectly.
Yeah.
But from that, as you can see, as I start building the model, there's other variations of it as it comes, and I'm just, I'm adding details on it. I start adding eyebrows and little hairs. He's a zombie, so he's kind of decayed, and he starts to get that look and has a style to him. And maybe try to model your elements more kind of like, how you would draw a character, like the style and what you're doing with your character. And then from there, we also need an enemy, right? So boom, you start
pumpkins.
You start sculpting, your pumpkin, and this is kind of just the process for what I would do to make a pumpkin. I would build my pumpkin. I think I start with a sphere, and I extrude off the top of the sphere, and then I just use booleans to kind of cut out the different elements. So I'd sculpt like you can see right here. I sculpt kind of this mouthpiece out, right? Put it in there, do a Boolean subtract, and then just start tweaking your verts as you go. And then I'd make a triangle piece because pumpkins are easy, right? You're just cutting out basic shapes on them.
A lot of the
right?
same tools that exist in vector graphics, right? You can kind of add, subtract,
absolutely,
cut out.
Absolutely. And then you start getting the shape. And again, like with pumpkins, I'm just using Booleans because we need these awesome pumpkin enemies, and I think they're hollow and they have these cutout elements. So as I'm going, I'm doing that, and then you start to actually get the character you're looking for.
Now, when you're drawing this in Maya and you want to see it in Unity, how often do you kind of do that workflow? So Unity will support the .ma files, Blender files, etc.
Yeah.
As long as it's installed in the same machine.
Well, that's a great thing about Unity is the cross-platform. I mean, was it cross-platform? No, cross-software support. I guess the software support, back-end software support it has. It works with Maya, which is great. It works with 3D Studio Max as well. But it supports those files, so I can make a file in Maya, throw it into Unity, into my scene, start moving it around and even resizing it, going back and forth from Maya and saving, and I see it updating real time in in Unity.
That's pretty cool.
So it's great for level building. It's great for getting the size of the characters you want. There's a lot of bonuses to having that backwards compatibility. If you're working in large teams that are using multiple versions of 3D editing, always save as like OBJs or FBXs so everybody can access them, because if one person's using Maya and somebody else is using 3D Studio Max, it can be kind of a headache if other editing needs to be done. But if it's just a Maya only team, go for it and just use Maya files. I mean, that works. Or if it's a hybrid team, go for more of the FBX OBJ approach.
FBX, OBJ. I noticed a lot of things that come down from the Unity Asset Store come down as FBX or OBJ that you pull down.
Yep.
And those are just file formats that contain, FBX can contain model data in there. FBX can contain, I think, up to 5 animations inside of there.
Yep.
So different things you can pack into those file formats.
Yep. And I'll show you really quickly, just for the sake of what we're doing here. There are pumpkin enemy. This was the different files we have.